welcome to Namespace Podcast. I'm Jordan, and I'm here with my co-host, Derek. Today, we are going to talk about contracting and consulting, which we both have some experience with contracting and consulting.
Yeah, too much experience.
Yeah, we have a lot of experience that we would like to share because it's interesting, and also it might be helpful for you if you're looking for a new job and you're trying to decide, should I take this contracting role or should I take this consulting role, or is full-time more my thing? So we'll do some comparing and contrasting.
I thought it was just going to be therapy. We're just going to talk about our experiences. Like, have you been there? We've been there. We understand.
That's true also. Maybe you guys will be able to share some of your experiences with us this way. So
Cool. So you want to start off with some of your experience?
Yeah.
You have more on these topics. I just have the one.
Okay. I guess that's true. So, my first job out of college was a consulting position, and it was actually the only offer that I got. So I didn't really have a choice.
No, it was the first offer you got. You didn't wait around for the others.
That's true. Let's go with that. But yeah, graduating without a CS degree, I definitely felt like I maybe was a little bit behind the pack in terms of people applying to jobs in Austin, because, you know, there's so many people graduating with CS degrees in Austin at the same time I was graduating with my biochem degree. But after I started the consulting job, my first placement was where I met Derek. So that was really cool. And then I only had one other placement before I quit that job. And what I can say about it is that I think a lot of people like to talk about the benefit of consulting as being you're going to get a variety of experiences. Like, you're going to get to go to one company and use this one technology and work on this team with this manager and kind of have an experience in that environment, and then switch environments and gain new skills and gain abilities to work with all these different types of people. And in a way that's true, but you also have to keep in mind that some of the experiences are not going to be good and you're going to feel kind of stuck maybe. So that's what happened to me. I had a really, really great experience at my first contracting position, but then at my second, or I said contracting position, at the first company I was placed at through my consulting company. But then the second company I was placed at, I just felt like I wasn't learning at all. And I was communicating that to the consulting company a lot, like, hey, you know, I'm not gaining the skills that I want to be gaining here. And it didn't feel like I had the support from my consulting company that I wanted in terms of, oh, don't worry, we're going to get you out of here and put you somewhere that you're going to be happy. It felt like, oh, well, usually our contracts are 3 months, but we signed you away for a year without telling you, and now you're stuck.
Right. And you're forgetting a very key part of this story is you were stolen from us.
Oh, that's
we wanted
true.
to keep you, and there's some backdoor shady deals to get you gone. Which,
yeah,
you know, I know from our management that people weren't happy with it at all. Yeah, so you're forgetting that. And then
that's true.
When you went there and they wanted you to be a team lead, right? Or it was just the point of contact at this new client, because the second placement was a new client for the company.
Yeah. It was a brand new client they were looking for people who knew Python. And I'm one of the only people at the consulting company who has Python experience. So they basically promised to the new client, like, hey, we're going to give you our best Python developer. Even though I'm like still pretty new, they were like, oh yeah, she's our best Python developer. You're going to have her, and she's going to help like train the other people that we put over there with maybe less Python experience, but they're going to be there as a team and they're going to have her. So that was kind of what happened. And, Yeah, and a lot of miscommunications as well between the consulting company and you guys. So
I don't know if it was miscommunications.
Or maybe I think it was a lot of lack of communication with maybe our people not responding or answering.
Oh, yeah. Okay. See, now, okay. We got to have all of our listeners sign an NDA, email us at namespace_pod@gmail. We'll email it out. And
namespace.
Is it namespace? No, it's namespace.pod at Gmail. It's namespace_pod at Twitter, but you can't get the NDA from Twitter. You got to email us.
Yes.
Because, see, now we're talking too much about
I'm
this.
trying to be very generic. But anyway, this is just our experiences that we thought would be fun to share.
Yeah. And the reason we want to do the episode is because we feel like there's a lot of other developers out there that have had the experience, or they're new to the contracting consulting and they're like, what's it like? I'm having this experience. Is this normal? Does everybody have it? So, the therapy part I was talking about.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your situation a little bit longer. Because we were talking the entire time through it, and from the outside looking in, this company placed you at Silence, and you did phenomenally well there.
Well, thank
you were, in my opinion, better than some of the developers we had full time. So the fact that they wanted to take you as like a point of contact, team lead, and use that as a pitch to this company, I think you would have done very well. The problem there was that other company didn't care to take the expertise you brought. They had their way of doing things, and they were treating you much more like contractors, where it's like, hey, listen, we're paying you a bunch of money. You do what we say and when we do it and why we do it and all of that. Yeah. We're the customer, and they weren't taking the consultancy portion of it, and this is the delineation I draw with consultancy versus contracting. Consultants bring a level of expertise on a particular topic. A contractor comes out because they can do a specific task. But not necessarily with the expertise in consulting on best practices and how things should be done. And so I think you could have been very successful, but as you're indicating, you didn't feel like you had support from the consultancy, and the clients didn't seem to care to accept a consultant. They just wanted somebody who was going to bang out a bunch of Python code for them.
Well, that's the thing, is like, I wasn't even writing Python code. It was crazy at the new client. Like the things that they were asking for in terms of like what they were requesting from the consulting company versus what they actually wanted us to do. That was a whole nother problem, because it wasn't even banging out Python code. It was like, well, I would consider it mostly just manual testing. So anyway, that's why I got out of that. But that's what can be really weird about consulting, is the consulting company. I'm sure that there are consulting companies out there who care a lot about the consultants. And I do think that where I was working, I had a good relationship with a lot of the people there. But number one priority is for the consultants to be billing somewhere. So it's like, this was somewhere.
Are you saying that money talks?
Yeah. So, I mean, even though I wasn't getting the experience I wanted, I was still making the consulting company money by being there. And it was a new client. They wanted to maintain that relationship. So that is something to consider, is like, if you're working somewhere full time, that they've invested in you, and they want to, like, the company that you're developing for wants you to be the best developer you can be, and wants you to build skills, and wants you to grow into somebody that can do good things for that company. As a consultant somewhere, or I guess contractor, because like you said, we are kind of being treated like contractors. We were there, and that the client definitely didn't care about our career growth. They just needed some stuff to be done. And that's why we were there.
Yeah.
Felt very different than whenever I was on your team. But honestly, probably because you were there. I don't know. Silence is really great. I really like.
She's dropping names. It's okay.
You already said Silence.
Well, yeah, I've had the hat on in the episode, so everybody knows.
Yeah. I haven't said the name of my consulting company. I guess if you really, really care, send us an email. I just don't know how specific I should be getting.
No, we're not going to say things publicly that companies can get mad at us. But if you want to drop us a private line and say, hey, they've made me an offer, do I need to be concerned?
More, yeah.
At least for me. So we're going to get into one of my stories. And if you get the hint that you're going to start with one of these companies and you want to ask me my experience and the uncensored version of my experience, hit me up on a private line, because I had a bad experience, real bad. But
well, we're not going to name drop on that one, but one is really
I might
maybe.
I'm a vindictive person. So anyhow,
I'm trying to think if there's any more interesting stuff I can share about my first consulting experience.
So as you were talking, I realized that I actually have kind of a consulting experience as well. So while you think about that, I'm going to share mine.
Oh yeah, go ahead. You can do yours. Is it the really bad one?
No. That was contracting. But this was almost like side hustle consulting work.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually one of the most enjoyable products. The people I worked with, I absolutely loved. I still talk with them and hang out with them. Although I'm not in the payroll there. The project was innovative. It was doing exciting, fun stuff, something that hadn't been done before. It was challenging, caused me to grow in all sorts of areas of development that I never really cared to or wanted to, but I had to. But yeah, that was like a 3-4 month thing. And I'll go ahead and name drop on this one because it's a good experience, and all I can say is wonderful things about living security. And they're a company that does security training through things like escape rooms and stuff. And so the idea was to have an all digital escape room. And I helped develop some of the content for that, help write the storyline for this escape room, and then do some development on the application itself.
Cool.
I'm not going to go into the details in case they still want to use this stuff. So... but anyhow, this was a company that had developers, but for what they specifically wanted to do, I had the expertise. And so I was a contractor by definition. I had a contract with them, and I was a contractor. But what they were looking for was the consulting on a subject that they didn't have the expertise on. And so they treated me with a great deal of respect, and they listened to what I was doing, and they gave me the freedom and autonomy to not just tell them how things should be done for this product, but to actually show them as well. And the handoff, getting to teach that was very valuable. And we have a great relationship still. I'm not doing anything with them currently, but if they ever called up and said, hey, Derek, we want you to work on something, and it's like, yes, it was so much fun. I'd love to.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that was my one contracting consulting that was actually really good. And I forget about it because it was only like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
But just great relationships came out of it. So much fun. Gave me an idea for something that I'm going to open source eventually, but it is a huge undertaking. So I'm kind of just kicking it
on the back burner.
I have 10 projects that I need to do, and that one is probably second biggest, and so it's going to get kicked for a while.
Yeah, get the low hanging fruit.
None of it's low.
I know, that's what I was.
It's low hanging.
I was thinking it's like, oh, your framework agnostic application thing.
Oh, so yeah, that one is just a gimmicky toy.
Like every project I try to think of yours, it's like, yeah, none of them are low hanging fruit. Maybe like writing a tech article.
Yeah.
You can throw that out there.
Yeah. Those are kind of low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's interesting. Like, you consider it a consulting role, and I agree. I think that it does sound like I think that would be a good definition for consulting versus contracting, is like being brought in to be a subject matter expert and to provide guidance. I mean, that's like the verb consult aligns much more with that than what I was doing whenever I was consulting. Whenever I was a consultant by definition, you were on a contract by definition, but it felt more consulting. Yeah. And I was not consulting anybody. Like at my first client.
No, you were consulting me for advice.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. My first client.
I only say that because I had worked full time there longer, so I had product expertise. It was just from days in the seat. Okay.
No, I mean, that also was my first development position. So it was really great to be on a team with so many people that were so helpful. Like it was really cool to be on that team, but I definitely didn't feel like I was consulting. Like I think that consulting as a junior developer is really weird because you're not teaching anybody anything. So
but
I
that's
guess
so not true, because what you ended up, so once again for that, you're actually brought on to do a specific task.
Yeah.
That then was like, oh wait, no, never mind. We need you on board this other task that took the rest of the developers.
Oh,
and then you
that's
had
true.
to do some proto buff work for us, which none of us had done anything with.
Yeah.
And so you actually became the subject matter expert on proto buffs. So in a way you did end up consulting, even though it didn't feel like it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That was weird. We were brought on, I guess, to help with the one project that y'all usually work on.
Yeah. Well, because all of us were brought away and like, we need you to go special ops on this one thing that needs to be done on a very tight timeline, and we trust you guys to do it. And then the manager's like, but we can't just leave our other two products for 3 to 6 months with no developments. And like, well, we're going to bring in some consultants.
Okay, that's what happened.
But then we left those two products for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, those did not get developed. But then after I got to work on those products too. So it was a really cool experience because I was at one client, but I did work on 2 different products that were very different. So that was a great experience. But yeah, I guess maybe I consulted about Google Protobufs, but it definitely wasn't like I was brought in to be a subject matter expert. I was brought in to be extra hands on deck for sure.
Yes.
Which is more of a contracting mindset. But that just goes to show like
my definition of contracting versus
your definition.
Consulting.
And I think it makes sense. Like I think that definition makes sense, but it is just kind of goes to show how ambiguous the two things are. It's like it's very ambiguous. So there's the consulting company that I was working at, which you show up, you get hired, you're full-time for that consulting company. And where I was working, if you don't have a client, you're still getting paid salary. Like you're still getting paid the whole time. So if you're what they call ATO at the office or on the bench, like all of those terms, like if you're without a client, you're still getting paid full time. I have heard of consulting companies that while you're on the bench, you get paid like half the normal amount, or you don't get paid at all, but you're still employed or something. I don't know, like weird. There's weird things like that. And I think the other, like, I'm just trying to think about consulting companies now. So there's
a really big one that you may not know. Well, no, you have to have known them because I've forced you to read one of their books, ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks is a consultancy agency. And I don't know exactly how they work, but I've listened to a lot of their talks at conferences. I've read a lot of their tech articles. And so I imagine when people are on the bench or at the office, whatever they call it, they are producing these materials that then build the brand recognition.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
And I really like ThoughtWorks. I would totally work for ThoughtWorks. I actually even had the opportunity to interview for them, but because I have kids and my whole situation, it wouldn't have fit because I'd have to be away from home too much.
Yeah.
But, once I finally boot the kids out to boarding school or something, ThoughtWorks, I'm your guy.
Yeah. And I guess besides the whole, like, what happens when you're not at a client thing, another big difference between consulting companies, I would say, is whether or not they have non-compete. What's it called? Just a non-compete.
Oh, yeah, non-compete.
So The company I work at had a non-compete. There should be a noun after that, right? A non-compete agreement.
Clause. Agreement. Yeah. Okay. I just call it non-competes.
Right.
I don't know if yours was a non-compete so much as it was the client, so Silence in this case, are not allowed to hire you even if you quit the consultancy. And so I don't know what that clause would be because I'm not a lawyer. But
like Silence isn't competing with the consulting company, but there is a rule that says I'm not allowed to work there because I consulted there.
Right. And so that's weird. So much more I could say, but it's so
there's also a non-compete. Like I'm not allowed to work at other consultants and consultant agencies either. I'm pretty sure. I mean.
So this legally, no, this is not legal advice because I am not a lawyer. The way it was explained to me is they cannot prevent you from working at another consultancy, but they could say you can't go work at another consultancy that is using that same client.
Oh, I think interesting.
That's the relationship, because that prevents the whole, I'm just hopping from this consultancy to that one to just get more money. But if it's like, no, I want to go work for that consultancy, there's no reason for them to.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's how it was explained to me. Again, not legal advice. I am not a lawyer.
Yeah. But that's definitely something I would say to look into big time if you are at all looking into working for a consulting company. Whenever I was looking for a new job, I interviewed with a lot of different consulting companies because there's just so many. And I probably interviewed for 3 or 4 or something around Austin, actually. And all of them were very explicit. We don't have non-competes. If you like your client, you can work there. We're not going to stop you from doing whatever you want to do. And that's how it should be. It's like they're very 2 different business models or business ideas behind that. It's like, 1, we want to keep our talent. 2 is, I would say, more of we want to maintain a I do this all the time. A reputation.
There you go.
We want to maintain a reputation for being like wanting the best for our employees. Yeah. Like we're not going to prevent our employees from doing what they want to do type thing. So I think that, I'm biased toward freedom. So
as are all of us.
Yeah. So I think working somewhere with a non-compete is a little bit limiting. You may not think about it when you're accepting the offer, but down the line, it's like you're going to be creating a lot of relationships with people. And yeah, it's going to suck to be very limited in searching for your next position, that most of the people you've been forming relationships with are people that you can't work with anymore. Yeah. It's kind of a weird. Yeah. So anyway, I guess a lot of consulting companies are leaning away from that just based on the fact that the 3 to 4 I talked to are not offering they're not enforcing the non-competes. So that sounds to me like a better business model. But then again, I'm the employee, not the employer. So I'm biased toward my freedom.
Yeah. Well,
I think they should be too, but.
Yeah, if you want to get into the business philosophy of things, and I don't remember all the terminology, but back in the days, I had a business degree. Technically, still have a business degree, but I don't use it. Derek's got all these degrees that y'all don't know about. No, I think we've talked about them. Yeah, no, we have. Definitely in the intro. So if you want to hear what other degrees Derek has. Right, episode 0. That's for you. Yeah. But it's actually in the best interest for a business to have happy employees as well. Yeah. So the companies that aren't concerned with their employees' happiness are, they're kind of too short-term folks, I would say. And they're never going to be the big names that everybody wants to work for. Yeah. And capitalist. So I think the free market of things is going to eventually put them out of business, or they're going to become so minuscule that they have to transition into something else. Yeah. But yeah, if you're not treating your customers right, you're not treating your employees right, you're never going to be big.
Yeah. And I mean,
not nowadays.
And I think it kind of goes to show with the company I was working at, just because there were a lot of people quitting for similar reasons that I did, where it was like, I felt like my I'm so bad with words. That's why we have a podcast, right? My values weren't being considered very highly compared to the company's values, which is
okay. So you just saying that reminded me of, I think something I read on LinkedIn is where it was, but is this wonderful story. This dad gives his son a watch, and it was his grandfather's watch. And he says, "Hey, I want you to take this down to the jeweler, see how much they're going to offer you for it." And the jeweler's like, "Oh, it's a nice watch. It's aged, of course. It's not working currently. We'd probably give you $50 for it." He says, "Okay, now I want you to take that to the pawn shop, see how much they'd give you for it." And they say, "Oh, probably $5. Pawn shops are always cheap." And then he says, "Okay, take that watch to the museum and see how much they'd offer." And the museum recognizes that it's a World War I piece. It's an antique. It's in fairly good condition.
Yeah.
And they're like, "We'll give you $5,000 for that watch."
Whoa.
And the moral of that story, it's probably not a true story, but is you're not going to be valued the same everywhere you go. So go where people are going to value you.
Yeah.
Or where your qualities are going to be valued is really what it was. And that's kind of what you're saying, is you had great qualities as a developer and the company just didn't value that.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I just, the more that I think about it, I don't think that I'm even if I had great experiences in a bunch of different places, I'm kind of more about building a product with a team and trying to make it as good as it can be, and just keeping helping that company and making it succeed. Like, I have kind of that mindset versus just completing a small task. But anyway.
So do you want to go into your contracting experience, or do we want to start with mine?
Let's do yours so we can kind of like jump back and forth, It's your turn.
Perfect.
Now.
Okay. So my experience is what actually brought me to Austin. So I was living in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and hated everything about life. Couldn't wait to get out of there, which is probably why I ended up accepting with this kind of no-name headhunting agency. But the client they represented, big company in the educational admin space, and they very old school in the interview style. It just felt very like businessy, not a lot of flexibility, freedom. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. Yeah. But at the same time, they offered me a ton of money. First time in my life, I was making over 100,000, and they were very insistent. You have to live in the Austin metro area, which is where I was trying to get anywhere for personal reasons. And you'll have to come into the office on like release days and stuff like that. So without a relocation budget, I moved from Virginia to Texas. Had to go in to do orientation and stuff like that. And at that moment, I found out that the entire development team I'd be working with was in Kansas City. And I was like, oh, well, they said I'd have to come into the office for like releases and stuff. And they said, no, you don't understand. There's no reason for you to come into that office unless, I almost said one of the dude's names, unless myself or this other guy are going to fly down there, and we're not going to do that. And I was like, okay. So like first time right off the bat, like that's kind of weird.
I know, that's so crazy. Anyway, keep going. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So anyhow, So then I was told you don't have to come to the office. And I was like, so why did you insist on me moving to Austin? But, regardless, did I think 3 weeks of work, and me and the kind of what my manager at the headhunting agency. So when you're a contractor, you have two managers. You have your manager from your headhunting agency, and you have the manager at the client you're working for.
Yeah, that's another interesting topic I'll get into after this.
Yeah, right? Too many bosses.
Yeah.
So anyhow, he and I were supposed to meet up just to see how things are going. And the night before at like 7:30, and it totally ineffective because the email popped up. You've been removed from their Bitbuckets account. You've been removed from their Slack. I was like, okay, what's going on? Then I get a call like 15, 20 minutes later. I'm like, hey, they want to cancel your contract. Things aren't working out. But me and that guy were supposed to meet for sushi on Friday. So we met for sushi on Friday because I had to like turn in my laptop. And life was already going really poorly for me at that time. This was just piling crap onto it to make it worse. So if I had thought about it with a clearer head, I wouldn't have given the laptop back until I got a reason as to why they were getting rid of me. Because every time I met with
collateral.
the architect and the manager at the client, they're like, yeah, you're doing great. You're fine. We appreciate your work. And then all of a sudden he's done. We don't want him. And I should have held on to the laptop and be like, no, you're going to tell me what was wrong with my performance that you're getting rid of me. I was distraught and worried about other things and like already thinking, oh, I have basically no savings at this point and a maxed out credit card from relocating. I got to figure out a way to pay bills and stuff. But in that conversation at the sushi place, when I handed over the laptop, the guy at the consulting agency revealed that they wanted to cancel my contract, but they were keeping the contract open with the consultant or the headhunting agency, but this time for a developer that would be in Kansas City. And so that's the part there that really pisses me off, is they made a big deal about me moving to Austin. Mm-hmm. They didn't give me any reason why my performance was not good. And then they got rid of me so that they could have somebody in the Kansas City office, which was their mistake to begin with. And so they cost me like $30,000 from this contract. They added a ton of stress to my life. And the consultant, I keep calling it a consultancy agency. It's not. It was a headhunting agency. Mm-hmm. They blew smoke at me saying, hey, we're going to try to place you other places. But after that Friday meeting, I was not contacted a single time by anybody for any of it. And so that was my one experience contracting. And right then and there, I was like, I am never contracting again. Yeah. At least not for a company like that. I will go contract with a company like I did for Living Security, and that worked out great because it was me and them. We had the deal, we had the contract. But with these headhunting agencies that contract you out, the client and that agency has a contract, and you're just vulnerable, completely vulnerable, and they know that they have you, so they just treat you like trash. And that's my experience, and you can tell that I'm very biased about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's oh my god.
But yeah, so if you're gonna be signing with a headhunting agency based out of New York, or working for a company that has an office in Austin and Kansas City that is in the educational admin space, and you want to know what my experiences are, you can @ me, namespace_pod.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I hope you give them some bad reviews online or something. Like that sucks for anybody that works there. I mean, I feel like your experience is...
They got a Glassdoor review. But that's all you can do at that point.
Yeah, man. So that's crazy. So headhunting agency, you would think that's like a contracting agency. They're just contracting you out.
Right. So what they do is they go out and find a bunch of developers, and then they place you at contract to hire things. They don't want to keep you around. Their product is you. and they really get their money from, oh yeah, he was good, we want to keep him. And so they just want to churn through developers as quickly as they can till they find the golden tickets that they're going to sell. And I would caution anybody from one of those situations to just, nope, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I feel like sounds kind of similar to what I'm doing now, right? Like, I'm on a contract. These people just kind of found me. And I liked the person I spoke to a lot. They had me interview with a company. I liked that company a lot. And after that, I'm on a contract, and I'm not tied down to the contracting agency at all. Like, once my contract is over, they're done with me. I mean, they could put me somewhere else, but if they don't have anywhere else to put me, they don't have to keep paying me. Yeah. So I think it's kind of a similar situation. But
do you trust this agency enough that they would try to put you somewhere else?
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, I really liked the people I talked to. Like, you said you had a bad feeling from the start about the way the interview process was.
Well, so that was working for the client. I thought it was going to be a very like old school tech thing, and that they're going to be very rigid on like work from home hours and flex hours and stuff like that. Turns out they weren't. They actually, when I got to their office, I was like, oh wow, this is super cool. I would love coming into this office. It seems like I'd like to hang out with these people. Mm-hmm. Just things went the other way.
Yeah. But then whenever you talk to the contracting people, you interviewed with them first, right?
That's like your HR. Hey, can you answer the algorithmic complexity of quicksort type?
Okay,
BS.
So you barely even knew anybody there.
Yeah, and that was my first time delving into it, so I didn't really know what to ask.
Yeah.
So, that's part of why I tell the story is, now you know what happened to me. Now you know to ask questions of, well, what's going to happen in this situation?
Yeah, especially if they're making you relocate. Like, that totally throws a new wrench in the whole situation.
No company will get me to relocate again without giving me a relocation package.
Yeah, like, wow, I can't believe. I mean, I guess in a way they can say, oh, well, your salary is this much. Like, you're gonna be fine. Like, you can pay for your own relocation because we're gonna pay you so much money. Just kidding. We don't need you anymore. Like, I guess that could kind of have been the mindset, but I guess, yeah.
Well, that's the mindset I thought is, oh, I just made like a $40,000 pay raise moving from Virginia to this place. And like, oh yeah, couple grand in moving expenses and breaking a lease there, and, security deposit here and whatnot. I was like, yeah, I'll be able to weather that stuff even with everything else going on. But I never factored in 3 weeks instead of 6 months.
Yeah, that's insane.
6 months I would have been fine. 3 weeks left me high and dry.
Yeah. So anyway, definitely be wary, because it sounds like, I mean, if you're hired as a full-time employee, it costs a lot to fire people. Like, it's really, like, if you get hired full time, I think that you're pretty set as long as you don't mess up big time. Like, they're going to continue trying to invest in you, right? I think like the contracting situation is a higher risk of this type of thing, this type of unexpected, we don't need you anymore thing.
Well, yeah, and especially with a headhunting agency where I'm not protected by the contract. The agency is protected by the contract. So those two companies can still have a great relationship, and just, you're a peon and they flick you away.
Yeah.
Again, biased, bad experience.
Yeah. I mean, that was terrible. Like, I mean, the experience I'm having right now is really good. Like, I really like my contracting company. I liked everybody I talked to there. I really like the company I'm contracting for. I'm hoping to get hired full time. There's no non-compete situation. It's like contract to hire type of thing. So yeah, it's kind of nothing like your experience. So,
and you know what? I am so happy for you.
Yeah.
You deserve it. And you do deserve it because you work so hard. But honestly, everybody deserves it because it's common decency.
That's true.
So I actually just bought this shirt. It's the first time a social media ad actually got me to buy anything.
Oh, wow.
But it was a picture and it said humankind, and then under it, be both. Like, be human, be kind. I was like, dang, I like that shirt. I like that message. And I bought it. And I think that applies totally to this.
Yeah.
Be human and be kind.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I don't think either of those apply to either of those companies that I dealt with.
Yeah, man. I guess a side note that I thought of while you were telling that story is the whole so many bosses thing.
Yeah.
We could just kind of touch on that because that is another thing that's specific to consulting, I guess. I mean, like we said, my roles were more contracting-ish than consulting, but I was working for a consulting company full-time. So I had managers. I mean, like, that part was weird in itself. I should have had one manager at the consulting company that I knew as my manager. Anyway, that was weird that I had multiple. And then you also have your client manager. And it is a little bit weird because it's like, if you're a person who strongly needs feedback and you want to have conversations with your manager all the time about what you can do to be better, what you're doing that's very helpful, what you're doing that's not as helpful. It gets weird because you have your consulting company manager who doesn't know what you're doing ever. Unless you tell them or unless the client tells them. So you can have conversations with them, but they're not going to be the person to give you feedback on what you can do better because they're not the person. Like for me, I was at the client's office every single day, never saw my consulting manager. But then the consulting company doesn't really want me having those conversations with my client manager for some reason. I mean,
because they didn't want the clients to like you and keep you.
You think that's what it was?
Again, biased, but
yeah, it was weird. Like I wanted to have those conversations. It seemed like it would be beneficial for the consulting company for me to have those conversations just so I can be a better consultant, so I can have a better understanding of what I can do to improve and what I'm doing that's helpful and all the just, normal conversations that you'd want to have with your manager. Right,
but so if they keep you isolated like that,
they do, yeah.
Right, then you're not going to get a full experience of what it's like working for this company, and so it's going to make you want to stay. Like people mostly don't like change; like they want to be comfortable, and so in doing that, they're going to keep you comfortable as well. I know what this company offers me, and I don't know quite what it's going to be like here. So do I make that jump or not?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's just another thing to think about. I guess we've already kind of touched on what a consultant versus a contractor might be. We could talk about the different projects that people work on. So you were saying that the contractor might work on a short-term project, usually that's separate from the
so what I've seen with consultants and contractors kind of informed my definition of what a contractor and consultant is. So consultants I've seen brought in a lot of times to do greenfield development, something brand new, because they have the expertise in doing that. So one time it was a React component library that a bunch of consultants built, and then they handed it off and they went on to their next consulting client. Another one was a data science platform using Spark that they built up and they handed off, and then they went off to their next client. But what they were doing was building React component UIs or, React front ends, or in the case of the other company, they're building data science platforms. They have a level expertise and knowledge and specialty in those tools, that space. And so they should be able to churn things out very quickly. Whereas the way I've seen contractors used, unfortunately, a lot of them end up doing manual testing type stuff, even though they have the qualities of a developer and they could be doing development, and you should just stop manual testing and figure out automated testing anyway. But I've also seen it where it's like, well, we just need a couple more developers on hand to push this thing over the line. Is it 3 to 4 months later, you're done? Or it's, hey, there's this thing that nobody likes to deal with, so let's bring in the contractor to do it. And as soon as they're not satisfied, we just bring in the next contractor until they're not satisfied. We bring in the next So that's how I've seen it in industry at a couple of different companies. Because of that, I don't ever really want to be a contractor again.
Yeah.
And from my experiences, I very much would rather be a consultant.
Yeah.
Or full-time, but the way things are going right now and the ambitions that I have, it's going to be more like I am consulting myself to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it is so weird, like, because kind of the two examples you gave for what a contractor would be needed for, like extra hands on deck or manual testing, are pretty much like the things I was doing as a consultant. So it's so weird the way that they those definitions get skewed. And then right now, I guess the other thing that contractors are good for is I guess just like trial, kind of like a trial round.
And this drives me nuts because so I noticed it when I was looking for that job to get me to Austin. And then afterwards I noticed, before I started on with Silence, just so many places were contract to hire. And I just had such a miserable experience with that. Like, I don't even want to consider those positions, but so many of them use it as a substitute for the technical interview. Like, oh yeah, show up and for 6 months you're going to write code for us, and you better write good code, otherwise you're gone. I guess there's some benefits to that. I suck at coding interviews. So, you know, that's a better way for me to shine, but I've had such a miserable experience, I don't want to go back into it.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of companies are doing that from my recent like job search experience, and it does feel like a long-term interview. So I think, like the mindset that I have right now in my contracting position is obviously do my best so I can get hired. And I think
they'd be stupid not to. For anybody that's listening, management, I can vouch for her. I'll attest for her abilities. Yeah.
And hopefully actually need to more explicitly plug the podcast for my dev team. They all kind of know about it, but I really want to show them the technical debt one. Anyway.
That's throwing shade.
No, it's not. We've been...
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's like, oh, we have technical debt. That's why I want to share this with them. But I didn't say that. It's okay. I'll say it for you.
We've just been having a lot of conversations about it recently. Like, we just, for a long time, I guess since I joined the team, we stopped prioritizing our technical debt. Like, people would just kind of pick it up if we had extra time in the sprint. But we're bringing that back, like the technical debt prioritization, and we're trying to rather than just bring technical debt into the sprint if we have extra time, like actually prioritize it in sprint. So it's just, we've been having a lot of conversations lately about it, and I know like my managers, like, or my manager and like the product owner and other people have been having managers with higher up people about like, hey, you know, we want to start working on this technical debt, it's going to be helpful. It's just relevant. I'm not saying that we have a big problem and we're dealing with it wrong, or we need to do something different. I just think that that was a really good episode. But shoot, what was I gonna say? I think
your
I
current
remember,
mindset. You want to get hired on, plug the podcast.
Yeah. But I think I've definitely met contractors and consultants. I think people who are working for these companies that do have a concept of on the bench, like a concept of whenever you're not at a client, don't worry about it. We're going to put you somewhere else instead of like when your contract is over, you're done. I think a lot of people at those companies have a mindset that's, it doesn't really matter how well I perform because this is going to be over in a few months and then they're going to put me somewhere else where I can underperform and then they can put me somewhere else where I can underperform.
If people want to live that life.
I mean, I don't want to shoot. Do you think that you notice people with that mindset at all? Or like, I don't know if maybe I just have too high of expectations for people.
So what I've recognized or seen is that people that have been contracting for long enough don't have the collaboration skills that you really need to be a successful dev.
Oh, and that's what I want to do so hard.
it could be an artifact of, oh, well, I know I'm not going to be here long, so I just need to figure out how to get through the problems myself. And like I just do things my way and I get the job done because it's not like I'm going to be around long term.
Yeah.
And I would say that it makes you technically very, very good because you just know how to solve problems and it's a very desirable skill. But I saw it happen with a contractor that moved out of contracting into full-time development. He's very good, knew what he's talking about. I actually really liked his personality. A lot of people thought he was kind of abrasive. But when it came down to it, before like a new task would come down or people would start talking about, oh, we want to containerize all these apps. And then he'd just like containerize it and like, here's the pull request. Mm-hmm. And then if anybody started asking questions of the pull request, he's like, oh, no, this is how we do it. This is how I've done it. Like, and just wouldn't take feedback at all. And so in that case, like he could never succeed as a full-time dev that's stuck on a team for a long period of time because nobody wanted to work with the guy.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. That's definitely another perspective. Cause I definitely feel like I'm very collaborative and that's another reason why I don't want to switch all the time. I want to continue building this thing. But yeah, people who are less collaborative, not just people who are lazy. Like I was making it sound like, oh, there are people who just don't want to work that hard, and so
those people exist. I'm not denying that they exist,
but that's not the only reason why somebody might prefer jumping around all the time. I guess, yeah, you might just want to kind of do your task and move on. Yeah. And that's definitely a mindset that some people are going to have. So,
yeah. So I think the last thing we wanted to try and hit on was, where do we think the future is going? Is everybody going to be a contractor? Is everybody going to be full-time? Is everybody going to be a consultant? Yeah. With everything that we saw in the Stack Overflow survey with coronavirus, causing such chaos, and what we talked about here, I don't know that that's a pertinent topic, actually.
Wait, why?
Because
because we can't predict the future.
Well, we can't predict the future, but we've very clearly written like, this is where a consultant is helpful. This is where contractors are helpful, and they're very distinct use cases. Yeah. And so the topic is to say, well, are all the use cases going to be this, or all the use cases going to be that? Okay. And to say one or the other completely limits the entire field. And so now that we've been talking, I actually think neither one is going to become the go-to. I think that we will see a lot more of the 6 months contract to hire or whatever kind of scenarios happening. I think that's going to be more common, but I don't think it's going to be, you have these hiring agencies that place you, or headhunting agencies that place you someplace, or consultancy firms like what you were talking about. They're still going to exist, but I don't think they're going to completely take over and like Google is going to only use consultants.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They're still going to have their
way.
in-house devs.
Yeah,
so
you need that. The in-house people that are more tied down to it.
And that's why I'm saying I actually don't think it's a pertinent topic. I think it's a non sequitur.
Yeah, I think like if we're going to say, like, I guess if the question is, are consultants or contractors going to be more valuable? We've already kind of settled on a definition that they're for two different use cases. So it's like I think those two use cases will still exist. Like the use case for we just need somebody to do this thing really quick, or we need an expert to help us get to the next level for this one specific thing that we're trying to build. So there's both of those two use cases. But the other thing that we've kind of figured out is that if you're just being on a contract where you are getting paid hourly, you're not necessarily on a salary, like you're not tied down to a company full time, versus being tied down to a company full time and getting a salary but moving between contracts. It's like the former is also kind of a definition of a contractor, right? Like you don't have a salary, and then the latter is the definition of a consultant. So that's like the other definition, right? And I think if we talk about that definition, the only thing that I can say is I do think that the non-compete thing is going to become very important. Like the companies that are restricting those freedoms of their employees, from what I've seen, are not going to be doing as well as the companies that are offering more freedom. So I do think that in that respect, you're going to see companies that value their employees' happiness or their employees' priorities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To me, that is common sense. Like it's just
I mean,
but not everybody thinks that.
But it is very it is interesting because I mean the whole I guess the whole point of consulting, which is weird, is the fact that like you are the product, right? And it's like if you're making money for the consulting company, why should they do anything special for you? I don't know.
So you continue to make money for them.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's
why we get paid in general.
No, that's true. If they're on that model where you're a full-time employee, they should want to keep you happy, I guess. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That model is difficult though, because it's like you were saying, the company has the contract, the consulting company has the contract with the client. So they're more tied to each other than anything. Well, I guess if you're full-time, then you're tied to the consulting company. So y'all are still tied together, but there's just all these levels of priorities there where full-time is just so much more clear. Like you're the top priority because you're the employee. Whereas whenever you have to please the client, but also please your employees, you have to make a balance, and it's a little bit more strange. Like, the one-on-one thing where you're like the contractor and there's no middleman. I think that maybe that will rise a little bit more.
In the times of everybody having a side hustle, that's a great way to do it. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I kind of accidentally ran into it. But yeah, it was a good side hustle. It was a lot of fun, made some good money off of it. So I could definitely see that. I could actually see the rise for a company that's almost like this headhunting firm, but what they do is they facilitate the contracting portion for you. So like, I am a contractor. I want to go contract for these companies, but I don't have the legal team to support it. I don't want to have a lawyer on staff. I don't know all the HR stuff to do.
Oh, yeah.
And so that a company could facilitate people like, hey, we're going to handle the contract negotiation for you. We just need to know what you want.
Yeah.
And then you basically, I would imagine you either pay them a upfront fee for doing that for you, or in that contract negotiation, they say, okay, we're going to take this much of their paycheck in service for negotiating the contract. And then you're almost in that same situation of the headhunting agency, but it's a little bit more explicit. Like, we don't have a contract with this company. You have a contract with that company. And we just did the things that weren't the specialty of, wow, I'm pitching a really good business idea.
Yeah, I was just like thinking, as you're saying it, I'm like, does this exist?
I don't know, but it might really soon.
Because that is a really good idea. I think that's the whole
lawyer.
That's the whole weirdness, is like the whose priorities are what whenever you have that all these different people involved in a single contract. So it's like, if you can simplify that, and if you can be a bigger priority in terms of like all these different people who are involved in your development career, it's like you want to play the biggest part in that you can.
Yeah. Shoot.
I like that idea.
Right. And I'm already, it's spinning like, oh, okay. I have a couple of pretty high up HR recruiting type people that I know that I have a good relationship with. Do I know a lawyer? Yeah.
Well,
I might be able to make this happen.
Yeah, let's Google it after this and we'll see if it exists.
We'll see.
But yeah, man, I feel like I have so many opinions about consulting. I hope that I was able to voice all of them. I think that we did a pretty good I mean, we've been talking for a while.
Yeah,
so
I think that happens with every episode. We just want to keep talking.
Yeah, and then after the episodes, I'll listen to them and I'll think of even more opinions that I have. But we'll do revisits eventually.
Yeah. So anyhow, on that topic, you know, we want the conversation to continue even offline. So hit us up on the social media, hit us up on the email, namespace.pod@gmail, namespace_pod on any of the social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's all we have, right?
Yeah, and YouTube. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, check out our YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget that you can listen on the whatever podcast app. So
yeah, we're on all the popular ones.
Yes.
So I think that's going to wrap for today. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.